The Spin-off Podcast Network.
K-pop to me means more than just listening to music. It's learning to be myself.
The Spin-off's new documentary, K-Pollies, follows 3 Pacific youth obsessed with K-pop. In a one-off documentary, see what they've found in Korean pop culture and how they bridge it with their own.
When you start dressing, looking different, everyone side-eyes you. But in K-pop, they're just like, no, like celebrate yourself.
Watch K-Pollies today at thespinoff.co.nz/videos. Made with the support of New Zealand On Air. You're listening to Business is Boring, a podcast that reckons it's anything but. Business is Boring is brought to you by Spark Lab, offering inspiration and practical advice to help businesses find their edge. To hear more about Spark Lab, including details about the latest events, workshops, and business tools, visit sparklab.co.nz. And now, here's your host, Simon Pound.
You're listening to Business is Boring, a podcast that reckons it's anything but. Business is Boring is made by The Spin-off with help from Callaghan Innovation. Here's your host, Simon Pound.
Getting to 100 million in revenue is a magic number in a tiny market like New Zealand. It's a rare club, and even rarer if it's a New Zealand company selling mainly to New Zealanders and not exporting all over the world. In a business culture always looking for that weightless export, one company came in and turned convenience and delivered goodness into one of our fastest companies ever to hit that number. That company is My Food Bag, which has very quickly gone from new idea to part of the culture of the country, with 1 million meals delivered a month and a growing raft of options and an IPO on the way. To talk about that journey and her career before is founder and co-CEO Cecilia Robinson. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here today.
Hey, so tell me about your path as an entrepreneur, as although My Food Bag is so well known, you had another great successful company before that, Au Pair Link.
Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. Actually, we started Au Pair Link a couple of doors down from here in 2007, so a decade ago now. And it was really the first part of our entrepreneurial journey.
How did you get started with that? What led you to take the idea of the au pair and make it into a business?
Well, look, I'm actually originally from Sweden, and so I had looked to become an au pair in New Zealand and decided to go to America instead because I didn't think that the agencies that were operating here were very good. And then I ended up coming to New Zealand anyway, and when I was here, I really saw a gap in the market to change that. And so decided to kind of pursue that, mainly as a hobby initially, just a fun hobby because I loved it and I was passionate about it, and I thought that it was a really nice way of kind of doing good in the community and changing lives. And so, we pursued Au Pair Link and got it started in 2007.
I was a customer when you were the owner, and still a customer now, actually.
Great to hear.
After we had our third kid, we were going to sync, and then we looked into it. And I found the company to be amazing. It was, especially when you ran it, so well run, and everyone was so energetic, and people got back to you so fast, and it kind of blew out of the water most of the customer experiences I'd had. How do you go about building that culture?
Well, first of all, thank you for that. And it's always great to have people that are customers because, I often hear about My Food Bag, but Au Pair Link's just as close to our heart. So, I think customer service is always just delivering on your word and, putting your customer at the heart of every decision that you make, and truly making that part of your ethos. And so that's always been the way that James and I run our businesses, and it's always permeated through our team and our culture and everything that we do. So I think if you put your customer first, it's really how you end up winning in business.
Tell me about James there, who you mentioned, who is the co-founder and co-CEO of My Food Bag, and was it the same at Au Pair Link?
Yeah, it was. Look, I mean, it's funny because I often take the spotlight, and he's an amazing man. So we've always been in business together. We've started our entrepreneurials together. You know, while I was full-time in OPL Inc. working in it, he was the one that was bringing the bacon to make it work and then working after hours to make sure that everything ran swimmingly. And if it didn't, you know, help resolve those issues. And ultimately, he came into the business as well about 3 years in to work full-time, taking a massive big pay cut, as you do, coming out of a corporate world. So, yeah, we've always run businesses together, and we've always divided our companies in a way that makes sense in terms of how we manage and lead it. So we've got quite clear areas of responsibility, and it works really well for us, and we just love working together.
Tell me about your journey at OPL Inc. So you set it up, saw the gap in the market, grew it to a good level, and then exited. How did that go? Yeah,
well, look, it was a pretty interesting journey. So we started OPL Inc. and OPL Inc. became the first ever OPA company that was licensed by the Ministry of Education in the world. No other OPA company had done that. And so we ran OPL Inc. and it was going really well. And we were just about to have our first child, and I went on maternity leave. And I got really bored in that first week being on maternity leave, right? Because you're meant to do cooking and cleaning and ironing, and I'd done all that and I was just over it. And we'd seen the concept of my food bag overseas, and I just said to James, look, I really want to explore this. And, you know, he's like, go for it, honey. Go and have a look, you know, and see what you can find and see if it's viable. And so I wrote the business plan, and then 4 hours later I was in labour. And we had Tom, and then about 5 weeks after that, we were spinning Tom around our boardroom in his stroller while he was sleeping, and doing our board meeting and presenting the new idea for my food bag to OPL Inc.'s board. So it was pretty exciting, and I don't think we fully comprehended at that point how massively that meeting would, you know, change the outcome of our lives, because Teresa Gatting was part of that meeting. And she literally just tapped me on the shoulder as she was walking out of the meeting and said, look, I'm in. So what are the next steps? And I think both James and I went, holy smokes, we're actually doing this, and what are we actually doing? And so, yeah, that's how it all started.
Tell me how you got Teresa Gatting onto the board for OPL Inc. in the first instance, because she is, you know, very well known as one of the first really breakthrough female leaders in business in New Zealand, led telecom through such a big stage, and has been really careful what she works on since.
Yeah, she really has. And you know, I think it was just a series of good fortune that made our paths collide, to be honest. You know, look, my husband was at Telecom, and he always tells the story of how he was 7 or 8 layers down from Teresa, and there was this internal tool in Telecom. You could literally see every single person that was above you and who the managers was, all the way until you got to Teresa. But that's not actually the way that we met her, because I went to a speaking engagement for her for Bird on a Wire when she was launching it. And James has said to me, look, you have to go, Teresa's fantastic. And it was just around the corner from here at one of the hotels, and I was dressed in a pair of ripped jeans and a T-shirt, and, you know, had lived off Weet-Bix for probably about a week that week with OPL Inc. And I walked up to Teresa after the speaking engagement and said, look, I run this really amazing business. My husband and I are in business together, and you should really become part of it. And she said, okay, then, well, I'll give you my details. And later on that night, we sent her all the information about OPL Inc. Teresa was really amazing in the sense that she said, look, I don't want to be a mentor. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in being part of the board. I'm interested in, you know, having full transparency. I want to have impact, and, you know, you need to pay me because, you know, the advice that I provide is valuable. And so I think it was a really good lesson in selecting the right people for your business, because, you know, if you really want quality advice, you actually have to get the right people involved who have a vested interest in it. And so that's how we got on the path with Teresa. And I think for her, she saw it as kind of an avenue to get in with, you know, some young entrepreneurs and see where that journey was going to lead. And subsequently, we teased her a lot for that, because clearly it was a very good decision down the track.
And so you guys presented the idea to the existing board, and then you decided to sell the company to focus on it entirely. Tell me about how you made those decisions.
Well, yeah, look, to be honest, it wasn't as straightforward as that. So what actually happened was, a series of events was that we started exploring my food bags after that board meeting, and by the time that Tom was 6 months, we'd launched my food bag and we were in market. So that was exciting, and we'd asked Nadia Lim to come on board as our brand spokesperson and really the heart of our business. And so we went through that process. My food bag just had exponential growth, and James and I continued running both companies for quite a while. About a year and a half into that journey, we were approached to sell OPL Inc. as part of the Evolve Education roll-up. And so we decided that that was the right opportunity, not only for us personally, but for the business as well. We had a really capable general manager in place by that point and decided it was the right opportunity to exit. So it also enabled us to focus full time on My Food Bag, which, was a really big opportunity for us at that point, and we thought that it was a really exciting thing to explore as well.
What kind of growth were you seeing at that moment with My Food Bag? Because like I mentioned in the intro there with the path to 100 million, it's such a magic figure and you guys kind of just smashed through it.
Yeah, it was. It was a really exciting moment for us. And, I think there are very few businesses that have done, 100 mil in the space of, 3.5 years, which we did. And look, you can just see that exponential growth, and we've been doubling year on year, every single year. And so you look at that as a track record, and it's just super exciting. And not only that, but the consumer feedback. And, as you say, My Food Bag has truly become part of, the DNA of so many families across New Zealand. And it's a huge privilege. We don't just take that as a given, but it's actually super exciting for us to see how many, families we're now penetrating in terms of the level of households subscribing to My Food Bag.
How do you manage that? So, something is that successful, even just to provide half of what's going on in terms of capital and infrastructure and growing and the like over a 3-year period. Did you take your funds from the exit from Opearlink and plough it in, or did you find a very good bag manager? Or how do you do that?
So look, My Food Bag is a unique business model, and the proposition of the business model has worked really well for us. And, the initial founder shareholders, initially invested in the business, and we had some other, structures in terms of our bank as well. But look, My Food Bag, part of our business ethos and part of who we are has been to make sure that, we're sustainable in the way that we do business. And, that's been really important for us across both of our businesses. So that comes down to, environmental and, with your team and also financially. And so that financial aspect has been very well managed through the growth periods. And we've been able to really, work through that as we go. So no, we haven't needed to do that with the funds from Opearlink, no.
Oh, wow. So, and that subscription model, that idea of, people pay and their food arrives and then they pay next week, how's that helped you guys grow? And what kind of things actually helped you get the first wins to get that to pick up, do you think?
Well, I think that's a really good question. When you look at the first wins for us as a business, the sustainability in terms of working with our suppliers, has been super exciting for us. When we launched 4 years ago, we had a suite of suppliers that we'd selected to be part of the journey. But look, there are a lot of people that wouldn't even consider us when we were new into the market. And so what's been a real privilege has been us growing alongside a lot of our suppliers. And, a lot of the major suppliers that we were initially identifying to work with, those 3 or 4 years ago, are still part of our journey now. So, not only has My Food Bag grown and had a huge amount of influence, our suppliers have really grown as part of that journey. And that's really cool, making a real difference across so many people's lives. So we've been really proud of that.
Tell me about the role of PR, because you guys built that business off word of mouth because people were like, wow, this is solving a problem and I love it. But also a lot of great PR before you went more recently to mainstream kind of above the line advertising.
Yeah, you're right. And I mean, PR did form a really strong part of our strategy. And you look at a company like My Food Bag, and to be really frank with you, the amount of capital that we initially raised to build the business was never going to make the business the way it is today. And so we had to be really clever with our funds. And I think in a startup mode and an entrepreneurial environment, you have to be really clever with how you're spending your cash. And so we decided to clearly allocate quite a significant portion of that to PR. And part of that strategy was in the early days of influencer strategy. And so, paid formed a really critical part of that. And, we identified a whole heap of influential people across, Auckland at that point that we wanted to give My Food Bag to and see what they thought. And look, so many people said in retrospect that, look, that was such an easy thing to do, but actually it wasn't, because we were trialling a whole new concept with people, and it was actually really high risk, because if something failed or if we made a mistake, it was all out there.
Yeah, and if all of them said, it doesn't look like a good value or a good proposition,
exactly.
or the food didn't keep, or
exactly,
the
or
yogurt
we didn't
spoiled.
like it, or
yeah.
So it was actually super high risk, and but we worked for the challenges of that as a team, and we executed it really well. And for the next 3 months post-launch, we really focused on a strong PR strategy to build the robustness along the brand. And then after that, we went above the line pretty quickly. So, we decided to spend our funds in a way where we were able to quickly reach mass in New Zealand. I think that was really important.
Tell me about that execution, as you guys are very well known for your speed to execute with launching new products, sometimes going from idea to action in the space of a month, I've seen reported. Tell me how important it was, especially in the early days, to have that kind of execution mindset, because I imagine this idea, if you'd seen it overseas, other people might have seen it too.
Yeah, look, I mean, an idea is nothing until you do something with it, right? And so for us, idea is all around execution and how we execute. And as a business, we take great pride in the fact that we are quick executors, and not only quick executors, but excellent executors as well. So, that comes down to really understanding our customers, understanding our products, understanding the product suite, understanding where the market's going, and then executing on that in a way that's going to be deliberate and fast, And so we feel strongly as a company that to be able to win, you need to be nimble. And we're just always focused on that as a business. And look, in terms of ideas, James and I are ideas people. And so as ideas people, we just focus on, this is the next product we should be extending into. And that's part of the entrepreneurial gene pool, right? You listen to your customers and then you act. So, to the degree where our management team sometimes will go away on holiday and they pause product development to see if we've decided on something else while we're on holiday. But yeah, so we work for those challenges as a team, and then at the end of the day, we've got a really fantastic product suite to show for it.
And so how does that work when you say that you listen to your customers and then act? So let's look at how you first started, which was with the kind of classic bag. And then what do? You go out and see a gap in the market, or someone says, oh yeah, but I don't want this much. What kind of stuff do you do?
Well, our initial product suite was classic and gourmet, and we always had a third product plan, which was family, which we launched about a year after our initial 2 products. And so we spent a huge amount of time listening to our customers, and listening initially when we didn't have a lot of funds was through social media, often a lot of me spending time looking at our customer communications. And look, to be really honest with you, for the first 18 months that my food bag was in business, I was on the receiving end of every single customer feedback. So not necessarily responding to it, but I was looking at every single piece of communication we got. And from that, I built a really holistic view of, what our customers needed and what they were talking about and what their concerns were and how we could resolve those. And so for me, that was a really big focus on that product development. As the business has grown and we've reached more scale and we've been able to invest differently, we do conduct it slightly differently nowadays. I mean, in the early days, we always did focus groups with our customers. We'd ask them in and we'd cook them dinner and we'd ask them questions and we'd try trial concepts with them. But nowadays we don't only do that, we also expand more into, doing more robust surveys and things like that. But yeah, we've always had that culture of making sure that we're listening and then that we're testing and then that we're acting on what our customers are asking us for.
I saw you speak fantastically at a Deloitte Fast 50 event, and you mentioned that one of the things that you guys had done that was a little bit different was you cannibalized yourself. So you would bring out products that would eat away at your market share.
Totally.
Because otherwise other people would. And that struck me as such a great idea. But did people advise you not to do that, or was that not conventional wisdom? And can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you look at it and, I think Steve Jobs, said something like, if you don't cannibalize yourself, someone else will. And, we always I actually banned cannibalization as a word internally. Our team wasn't allowed to say cannibalization because we just talked about meeting our customer needs. And so, yes, there was a lot of anxiety inside the business, and particularly in the finance team. And their job is to be conservative, right? You don't employ a CFO to be, a radical change person. You want them to be conservative and to protect the business. And so there was a lot of robust debates internally around what would make sense, but ultimately it just came down to listening to our customers. And for doing that, I think that, as a business, we've got world-class retention rates in our category. We've got customers who keep coming back and customers who feel as if they've got a choice within our product suite to go from product to product, and we want to meet that need. So we quickly realised that just having, trying to fit people into one box was never going to work. And so giving them the opportunity to swap and feel as if they had more choice was really important early on. So having that level of cannibalization or migration was really important.
What's an example of that? Is that like the more bargain-focused box that you brought out?
Totally.
And I imagine that its biggest competitor would have been your major family box.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And so, you look at that from a business perspective, and so many people would say to you, look, why would you change something? Why would you change a winning formula, right? Why would you try to do something different with something that's working so well and meeting so many customer needs. But we also did hear customers saying, oh, well, we're stretched on a budget and, family meets a lot of our needs, but it's not entirely what we're looking for. And so we didn't only create a different product that better met that customer need. We actually looked at, the tastes of people and all of the different things that they were coming back to us saying. And through that, we launched Bargain Box, which has been an outrageous success, to be really honest with you. And, it's now constituting a really significant part of the overall My Food Bag brand. So we're really proud of that and the way that we executed it.
And it was a step change in difference, wasn't it? Down like less than half the cost a plate kind of affair.
Yeah, it's about $5 a plate. And, we really, as a business, are passionate about taking on the takeaway. We're all about, teaching people how to cook and giving them that opportunity rather than just, there are lots of businesses out there that focus on giving people food, takeaway or whatever it is. And for us, it's about really teaching people how to cook. And there's something incredibly empowering about looking on, Bargain Box's Facebook feed and you see these kids in the kitchen cooking with their mums and dads, and that is truly changing the way that we eat. And we're really proud of that because I don't know many businesses in New Zealand that are changing the way people are eating to that degree.
And that idea was how you brought Nadia Lemon, who at that moment was, when you brought her in, was one of the biggest names in the country, having just come out of the MasterChef franchise. And how has that been part of the success? So, obviously the business, but the food.
Yeah, well, it's funny because people look at it and they're kind of like, what happened first, the chicken or the egg, right? And people say, oh, was it Nadia first or My Food Bag first? Or what actually happened? And so Nadia had just come out of the MasterChef franchise and she was a year out from winning, and Chelsea had just won the year that we were looking at the business. And Nadia was just fantastic. You just look at her and how she translates on camera and how genuine she is and how warm she is and how passionate she is, and alongside that, incredibly talented. There are few people in this country who are as talented truly as a chef as Nadia is, and she just delivered on that promise week on week. So we loved that about her. We loved how passionate she is. We loved, her ethos around, eating from the ground and the sky and the sea. And so that really fit well with what My Food Bag was looking to achieve and how we were really going to win in this market.
You mentioned a little bit earlier on that you'd been, when you went to see Teresa Gadding, you'd been eating Weet-Bix and having some long days. With a big success like this, sometimes even when things are going well, it can be as hard as when things aren't going well. How's the journey been in two fast growth companies?
It has been really intense, and I think intense is the best way to describe it. And I think many people talk about the fact that it can be quite lonely in entrepreneurial journeys. And I think for us, it's a really different journey because we are truly husband and wife, and we manage our different the businesses quite well together. My husband manages marketing, IT, finance. I manage our customer, our development kitchen, and our operations and purchasing and people. So we split the business really well. So for us, that journey has been really intense, but we've always been on it together. And, as you go through your journey, you have lots of wins, but lots of setbacks. And it's about your ability to pick yourself up through those setbacks, having that emotional resilience, believing. It's really important. And surrounding yourself with people who are adding value to your journey. And so we've done all of that. And look, we've had a lot of wins and we're really fortunate people, but we're still enjoying our journey. And we're really looking forward to the future.
What are your next steps there? Because you recently brought on some capital partners to steer towards an IPO.
Yeah, look, and it's super exciting, as we prepare to IPO, there are lots of things going on inside the business. And My Food Bag is, and when you're looking at any business that's, well cracked 100 mil, you've got a whole suite of other challenges along the way, and you're actually not a small business anymore. You're really in that medium space, and so you're thinking about all the other ways that you can add value to your customer and how we can better deliver on our promise. So that's a big focus for us as a business, and really leading that step change is really important to us.
When people come to you for advice as young entrepreneurs, what kind of advice do you give people?
It does depend on what part of the journey they're in. And I think, at the end of the day, you have to work on resolving a problem. It's all fine to think that, you might have a problem, but are you actually resolving a problem for other people? And, OPL Inc. and My Food Bag are fundamentally really simple, who's taking care of my children? And, what are we having for dinner tonight? And so if you can't solve a problem, you don't really have a sustainable business, in my view. And so really focusing on resolving a problem and then listening to your customer. Don't think that you know what your customer wants. Listen to them. Spend time understanding them. And from doing that, you will win.
And do you have words that you live by, or kind of like mottos or things you come back to?
Well, I think for me it's just around things that we talk about. In particular, James and I, we talk about the emotional resilience a lot, and, I think that we look at each other often and, happiness isn't, getting what you want, it's wanting what you have. And, you look at that, and for us, the happiness that we have is really, we have, what we've always hoped for in our life. And you have to stop and look at that. We've got 2 beautiful children, and that hasn't been an easy journey for us. So we've struggled quite a lot along the way with that side of it. And that's probably been just as challenging as the entrepreneurial journey. And now where we are, and we've got our family and we've enjoying our business, we're really blessed. So you just have to look at that and pause and be grateful.
Thank you, Cecilia Robinson, for coming in and talking
to
us today
me.
And sharing the journey. Can't wait to see the next steps. Thank you so much, Jose Barbosa, for producing, and thank you for listening. If you are a fan of the podcast, please do jump on and give it a rating and a review. They really do help. Thanks so much.
You've been listening to Business is Boring, presented by Simon Pound. Brought to you by The Spin-Off and Callaghan Innovation.
From the Spin-Off Podcast Network, that was Business is Boring, brought to you by SparkLab. Make sure you're following Business is Boring wherever you get your podcasts. And for more information on SparkLab, visit sparklab.co.nz. Ready to rediscover the joys of cycling? With over 300 kilometres of cycle paths across Tāmaki Makaurau, jumping on your bike and going for a ride is such a fun way to discover the city from a different perspective. Cycling is getting more and more popular across Auckland, so now's a great time to join the hype and give cycling a go. Head to at.govt/cycling to find your nearest cycleway today. The Spin-Off Podcast Network.